So I'm Liz Slocum, and I am a serial tech entrepreneur. So I'm going to show you how I used Hype in the various parts of building out my company and marketing it. So this is the agenda. I'll talk a little bit about me, and then we're going to talk about making a marketing video, which was my first project with Hype. And I'm going in chronological order. So then I'm going to talk about the pitch deck demo that I did, and then finally my most recent user experience prototypes. So this is me. I've been in enterprise software my entire career. I started in the late 90s. And I started in big data with a company called Informatica. I did customer support for them. I then moved to cybersecurity. I was doing operations there at a company called Ironport. Got bought out by Cisco, and I was while I was there, I went and got my MBA. I then got into startups in 2013, and I started a company called Driven, and that was a developer's platform that could create connected car apps. So there was one API that could talk to any kind of connected car, whether it was a Tesla or a Ford or a GM. And that was a little short-lived, but me and one other co-founder, we pivoted into making our own app. And that was what Road Rules is, and that's really what I'm going to show you today. You'll get a feel for what the app was like. And that was the idea of addressing texting while driving. And what we were looking to do was create a fun, interactive way to keep people from texting while driving. That shut down about a year and a half ago, and what I've been doing lately as a side gig is to do market research and market analysis on these tech blogs. So I do that for VentureBeat, and soon I'll be doing that for ReadWrite. What I want to show on this slide is that, first of all, I've worked in customer support and operations, and so these are cost centers in businesses. So they're necessary parts of the business, but they cost the company money. They don't make the company money. So when I was tasked with solving problems, I was given limited to no budget. So I felt like that helped me set the foundation in the startup world for working on little to nothing. The other thing I want to point out is that I have zero formal design experience. And so while I did take some scripting and programming classes in college and a little bit in the early part of my career, I'm never looking to code. So I'm looking for designing without code, and that's why Hype was perfect. So we'll start out with the marketing video. The problem I had was that I had this app, and I needed to do an explainer marketing video, but I had a limited budget. So what I did was I went online and I Googled how to make a marketing video, and I was trying to figure out how much that would cost and like what are the tools available. So I ended up on Quora, and these answers are actually pretty good. If you actually open up into them, people were giving advice on tools, but they were also pitching their own company that was showing these are the price points. You can spend $1,500 and get this kind of video. You can spend like $8,000 to get this kind, and it went up to probably like $25,000. And I was bootstrapping this company. I was paying for it out of my savings, and so I really couldn't justify $1,500. So I looked at the $1,500 level, and I was like, I think I can do this. And I think I could do it in Keynote, because that was what I was using mostly at the time. So I went back and I looked at my tools, and this is what I used. So I liked Sketch, and I liked Keynote for making mock-ups and doing presentations. And then I'd also been using iMovie for personal projects and for school. I have used Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, but I just feel like they're very cumbersome, just too clunky. I got to click on the right thing to even grab the right asset. So I never go to that as what I want to use for design. And then finally, I had access to Hype. So my background with Hype is that actually I was renting office space from them. About 3 years ago, I needed a couple of desks. They were renting out a couple like, and they actually told me as part of the lease that I was entitled to a free Hype license. And I had no idea what that meant. That's great. Never going to use it, ever. And then about a year later, I needed a marketing video. And I was looking at what I had, and since we used to do show and tells all the time, the team would come up and we'd get together in a sitting room and they'd show me the animations that they did. So it still seemed very advanced. I mean, to me, this is a very intimidating team. They worked at Apple. We got people from Facebook. There were other people renting desks who made animations on production movie levels. Like they'd show videos of aliens attacking London and blowing up the London Eye and things like that. I mean, it was very intimidating for me to come in. You'll see my graphics; they're 2D and very elementary. So, but I decided to look into what I could do with Keynote at first. Going back to when I was looking at Quora, and Keynote's great for a lot of things, but the animations are based on transitions, and I couldn't get them to interact. The timeline it wasn't as precise as I wanted it to be. So I decided Keynote was not the right tool. So then when I started looking into Hype, I looked at it. At first, when I first opened it up, it seemed like there might be like a steep learning curve, but there weren't a lot of resources out there for learning like there would be for Adobe products. So I was a little worried at first, but it turned out I read the welcome video for 2 days straight and was able to kind of pick up and figure out what it is that I wanted. I mean, I'll have to admit that at this point of my video making, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But I did like that I could figure out that I could do simple animations as well as advanced animations. It was compatible with the other design tools that I had on my computer already. There was no coding required. Obviously, that's a big thing for me. And it was low cost. I mean, it was free for me, but I could justify spending a couple $100s on a couple of tools that I could then use indefinitely. So this is my first Hype test. It's actually the name of the file. And I was in Connected Cars, so I got it to do this after a couple days. And you'll see this in my video a lot. So this was the strength that I got the wheels to spin, and I got this car to move. And so I can't believe I brought this out. This is my early storyboard in my notebook. So over here is actually the words that I thought I would do for my voiceover. And then I did these rough drafts of kind of the story I wanted to tell, scene by scene. And then I went out and I looked for inspiration based on simple shapes that I knew I could attain. This is design that I felt like I could attain. I've always liked the Paul Frank monkey because they were just layered shapes that were put together and I think it creates an expressive monkey. And then if you're a South Park fan, in the really early days, they actually took construction paper and cut those out and layered those out. And so that was obviously a successful design on simple shapes. The other thing that I really liked was the opening sequence for Mad Men because it was simple movements. There's the spinning of the fan and just simple panning of a figure. And it tells a story. You can see that they just have shapes, simple shapes moving and collapsing. So it tells a story of a dark figure going into a luxurious modern office, and then suddenly his world collapsed around him. And so you can see that simple shapes could tell a story. So okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my 52-second marketing video, and then what I'll do is then break it down as to how I built it out.
Say you're running late for a meeting, and you can't call anyone because your phone is in your bag, and your bag is in the backseat of the car. Road Rules has you covered with an automatic message that lets them know when you'll be there, so you can sit back and enjoy the ride. Say you're driving down the highway, and you receive a message from your friend asking where you are. Road Rules has you covered with an auto-reply rule that informs contacts on your whitelist about your location and availability. Road Rules helps you keep your hands on the wheel and eyes on the road, so you can sit back and enjoy the ride.
So that was 2.5 years ago in the early days of my design. I'll show you some more recent stuff. Thank you. Was there a question?
It's a good product. How come it's not around?
I couldn't get traction. That's the short answer. Couldn't get funding either. So I needed a car, and I went to the Noun Project. If you're not familiar with that website, it's a great community. Designers put up icons, and you can either give them credit for using it without a fee, or you can pay a couple dollars and use it without giving credit. So I went out and I looked for cars, and I went through the process of choosing my car, and I ended up with this one in the box. But I knew that because I wanted show motion, I needed to go into Sketch and create something that spoke so you could kind of see it moving. And then I was creating the backdrop, and I'm born and raised in California, so I was taking my inspiration from around what's around me. And above the Bay Area, there's the Santa Cruz Mountains, and it lies between the Pacific Ocean and what most people consider the Silicon Valley. And they have wine vineyards up there, and they have like hiking trails. It's really fantastic. So I was really experimenting with really simple shapes. So at the top, you can see I was working with outlining hills versus like maybe creating some sort of shadow on it. And in the end, I ended up with just taking different shades of green to create that dimension. So here's another place that I like to go to is Palm Springs. I spent a lot of time there. And these are the San Jacinto Mountains. So I took this very similar concept of layering the shapes in order to recreate the San Jacinto Mountains. And then also part of when you drive into Palm Springs from the LA area, you see a lot of windmills. And I've always liked these. It made me think that I was like really close to my destination. So I wanted to recreate this, and it went with the whole, I can do a spinning thing in height. So I knew I could do this animation. So I started with the shapes, and I went into Sketch, and I like tried how I wanted to do the blades. And this is what I wanted to do 2.5 years ago. This is what I want. But I did run into some challenges with the spinning. So I tried out different ways. I knew it had something to do with like where the center was. And this isn't hype, but I couldn't figure it out. And I ended up finding a workaround, and I think there might have been one of two reasons. I can't remember what. One is I realized that I had like the team in the next room over, and I could have gone over there and asked them. It was a really intimidating team because they're actually building. Well, okay, and we go to coffee like all the time. We actually had a personal relationship, but it was like going up to them like, why doesn't my thing spin? I realized that you're like solving real problems and building your product and like so. But the other reason, it might have been 2 a.m. and like my deadline was like, I'm not gonna prioritize this. I'm gonna find a workaround, and I did. So I made just a more symmetrical shape, and it doesn't look accurate, but I decided to deal with that, and because it just wasn't critical to the entire project, and I was able to move on. But I do have a fantastic epilogue to this. As I was putting together this presentation, I learned about this feature called the transform origin, and so it is in this part of the software, and like you can move the center of the center of what the picture is. So I got that going, and let's see, I don't know if I moved it around too much. So I might need to save it, but yeah, I got it to spin on axis. So I was very happy about that. So I put together all these different scenes, and let's see, I composed them in Hype first and got my animations, and I think I even exported it. I got the timing. I liked how I could work with the timing in Hype, so I got it so I could just export it as one continuous thing instead of breaking it out and trying to fix it with the voiceover. So that was one big file, and then I did the voiceover. And the voiceover I did in QuickTime Player, just at my laptop, and I did one sentence at a time so that I could have set it up with the pictures as they moved. And then I went into iMovie, and I put this all together, imported it all together. So I have my visual parts, and then all the green parts are the audio. So I have the little shorter parts are the voiceover, and then I took free music off of the iMovie app that I could use and just put that underneath to create that layer of dimension in sound. So that was the movie, and I was really happy that I was able to save $1,500 and get something out. But I think it only took a couple weeks. Like with my learning curve, I'd say 3 weeks to really tune it in. but I was really happy with like how it could come together so quickly and easily. So the next thing I want to talk about is the pitch, and I went into pitch investors asking them for money, and the thing is that you have to do a demo, right, to show them the product you're trying to raise money for. And the way our product worked is that it's an Android app, and so the sensors on the phone would sense your activity, whether you're walking or driving. So if you were driving and someone texted you, we would intercept the text message and then it would activate a chat bot. And so there are a lot of risks with doing a live demo. Just the app could fail, maybe the incoming text message wouldn't be received, and it's on a phone, so it just wouldn't look as good. So I used Hype. So this is actually the exact slide out of my pitch deck, and it was part of it. It was in the video, and what I liked about it was that it was in this really big format. So as I talk and I try to raise money, they can read this text, they can see how it works, and I can point out the features that I liked. Whereas on a phone, it's little, even if it's reprojecting, it's just, this was a lot more ideal and I had a lot more control. So let me break down a little bit on how I did this. I went into Sketch and I built the bubbles and the profiles and the text in that. And then I imported that into Hype. So with this, the main things I used in Hype were moving the objects around, and you can see that with the dotted lines, as well as just shifting it up. And then I think I was using opacity to get the map to come out at the end. So those were kind of similar to the video. Those are kind of my three strong points, was the movement and the opacity. And this probably took me about 2 days to compose and get it all lined up and the timing right. But I think the most of the work was done in Sketch just to get the words and the bubbles right. And so then once I composed it in Hype, I exported it right out of Hype into an MP4 file, and then that goes directly into my Keynote. So that was Road Rules. Then I shut it down for after about 1.5 years ago, and we just couldn't get traction. And so the thing about the entrepreneurial lifestyle is that you always have a couple projects going. So this is my latest one, and it's a social media tool. It's very similar to Twitter, I'd say. And I did have some goals, and it's to make high definition mock-ups for my engineers, so I think I can just hand it to them and say, this is what it is. It looks exactly like this. I want it to animate exactly like this. So I've used wireframes. I've used Balsamic. And I just felt like that created too much miscommunication with the engineers. They weren't quite sure if the color was right or where exactly to put things. And so I just like doing high definition mockups, and I really like how I was able to do it with Hype. Again, I'm going with my aesthetic of simple shapes and animations, because I felt like getting this right would help create trust with the app very quickly, and as well as give context to the user. And the other thing that we wanted to do with this team was use Material Design. So Material Design is a design spec that Google collaborated with IDEO, and it's based on their Google Now cards for the most part. And the way that I describe it is it's like colored cardstock that is stacked up on top of each other. And they use shading and animation to give dimension and bring it to life. And you can get more information on it at material.io. So this is what my sign-in page registration looked like, and my process for building this was I'd go and find inspiration, and then I'd consult with the material design spec, and I'd build my own. So let me show you online what that looks like. So this is, I would go to UpLabs, and that is an online marketplace for designers to showcase their work and get jobs, and I actually use it for inspiration. So I found my inspiration, and it's this login and registration page. I really liked the way this rectangle worked and the way it angled like this. And then I went out and I found my inspiration animation. So that's this. So I went into Hype to build that. And this is what an earlier version of it looked like. And I can just kind of scrub a little bit to show. This is a situation where I wanted I was playing with the shape of the action as it exploded out. And this is what the final product looked like. And what I learned from this particular project was the click target and how you can create, what I would do, and I can show you, is that I laid down a shape. This one I actually did consult Jonathan on directly. I laid down a shape on the here, so when, and then used on the mouse click, is that what it is? Continue the timeline right here. And so when you click here, it would do the animation. And then from this side, I created a click target there that's invisible, or not invisible, but opaque, or has an opacity of 0. And so when you click on that, it actually runs the timeline backwards to that. The next UX I did was selecting tabs. And this is what the final product looked like. I wanted to do a ripple effect. So I wanted this ripple behind it and have the indicator move. So I'm going to break it down because I did talk to some people last night who've never used Hype and wanted to see how things like this work. So what I did is I started in Sketch, and because I don't think you can do this in Hype with masks and things like that. So I started with assets, like with design tools that I knew how to use. So I have a rectangle here, and I have a mask. So then I put the oval, which creates the ripple, which is also at a limit. I think I might have chosen, oh yeah, it's a gray, but I put it at 70% opacity, and that's gonna go inside the mask. So then what I'll do in Hype is then work with opacity and scaling to make it do that. And I think I can show that pretty well. If I slow this down. So it goes, you'll see that the ripple, it goes from like 100% to 0 and as it expands. The other thing I was working on is getting the indicator to move with the clicking, as well as the opacity, and it's really subtle on this, but this is how the material specified it, I think, is that when it's chosen, the opacity of these words change from, I think, 70 to 100% if it's selected. And then the final animation that I did for my UX is a mic drop. So, oh, by the way, I don't own any of these images of these singers, but I use it as a way to kind of engage and kind of make it look flashy for my engineers. So they get it really fast. Where's this window? So let me show you what it looks like. So this is another click target project where when I like this post, a mic drop will drop from behind. And this one, this I did about 6 months ago, and I was able to actually do it in a working meeting with when I was working with my engineers within 10 minutes. So that's kind of how fast you can get these kinds of mock-ups going. And I had actually experimented with the physics, and I kind of tried to mock together the physics one just now. I tried to look at the physics feature, and it wasn't quite right. I thought that there were too many things going on and too many things to adjust. And what I appreciated with what I eventually used was that it was just simple movement, and I could do it within 5-10 minutes. So one of the things that I really liked about doing the animations and doing it like this is that I could make it look real without any coding really fast. And that was what engaged my engineers. I could also show it to users, and then they could really get a sense of what the app could feel like. So that's really what my takeaway is from using Hype and using Sketch and getting these high definition mock-ups. One thing I did want to share were the tutorials that I used, because I didn't feel like they were that easy to find at first. So there's Design Labs, and they do a website called Tour to Hype. And so they have examples and resources that you can download, as well as a website. And I've actually looked at them because they also were doing, I was trying to find out about parallax scrolling. And Daniel actually did a blog post on parallax scrolling. I looked at that one too. So that's something I'll be doing in the future. Hype Tutorials is another YouTube channel that I liked. And so I use that to learn about the physics feature. And then there's Motion Masters. And this one, it's not Hype specific. It's more design, animation, as well as material design. So that's what I found was helpful. And that's what I use to learn how to do the ripple effect. And so that one's a great one. And so that's what I have. This is how to contact me. I'm on Twitter. I have my email and my website. And I'm also looking for a job. So if anyone knows anything, give me a call.
Let's give you a round of applause.